everyone, I am Katie Chase of Farm Table Recipes, and today we are going to be cooking this huge 31-pound turkey. 31 pounds, I know that's crazy and likely way heavier than you are going to cook this Thanksgiving, but the tips and tricks and the recipe that I'm going to teach you today can work for any size bird, and I will help you along the way to make sure that all the proportions and everything are right for your bird. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we are going to start with making a butter rub. Now I choose not to use oil. We all love that really crispy skin, right? But I find that using a bunch of butter and a bunch of really yummy herbs and spices is just the perfect way to go when cooking your bird this Thanksgiving. It gives you that nice crispy outside skin, and we're also going to work underneath the skin to keep the meat nice and moist as it cooks. So in order to do this, what you're going to need some butter. And for this large of a bird, I'm looking at about 2 cups of butter. If you have a turkey that is about 20 pounds or less, you will need about 1 cup. Okay, this is kind of my go-to for turkeys. So this is totally foolproof. You can't mess this up, I promise. So we've got butter, we've got rosemary, we've got thyme, we've got sage. I've got, of course, a knife here that we're going to have to dice up some of this stuff. We've got scissors because we're going to need to take that turkey out of the bag before too long and let it start to really acclimate to the air, to the, to room temperature. Things are a little bit easier when your turkey is at room temperature. Make sure it's fully thawed first. Okay, and we're also going to need a whisk. We're going to need I'm just going to use a tablespoon measurement, less dishes. You can use a tablespoon measurement for all of your spices. It's okay. We're not going to get crazy fancy here. There's already a lot to do on Thanksgiving, and I want to make sure that this is super easy, fun, simple, so you can get this bird prepped in the oven and get going on your side dishes. We've also got 2 lemons. Now again, if you are using if you are cooking a lighter turkey, so about 20 pounds, you're only going to need 1 lemon. My turkey is huge, obviously, because it's farm fresh. My parents have raised turkeys from Mighty Oaks Farm, and we're here in Maine. So that's where we are getting our turkey, and that's where I am getting this monstrous, healthy, beautiful turkey, which is going to be great in some leftover recipes for sure. I have a big family of, this is number 5 right here, so we need leftovers and we make good use of them. Now you're also going to need garlic. You can either get or use a clove of garlic. You're only going to need a couple of the cloves out of there, and then the rest of the head we're actually going to use to stuff into the turkey. We are stuffing our turkey, but not with stuffing. Stuffing your turkey with actual stuffing is not recommended because it doesn't cook to the proper temperature, and you're going to risk getting people sick. And I know it's an old-time tradition and a lot of people do it and most are fine. However, that's not something that you really want to be remembered for, right? So we are stuffing our turkey later with fruits, vegetables, herbs, and the leftover of the rub that we're making. So you can use the garlic head here, or you can get some pre-minced garlic, which I love it. I use this stuff all the time. As you can see, it's a huge bottle, and I only have about a quarter left because I use it for everything. It's quick and easy. Love it. So then for spices, we're going super simple. You are going to need, you're going to need one of two peppers. You're going to need a black pepper or a white pepper. And this is totally up to you. Very traditionally, we'll use black pepper. And if you are using black pepper, especially this kind of fresh, like ground, fine black pepper, you're going to want to use less of it. If you use white pepper, this pepper is great because you do still get that really, kick of spice, but at the same time, it's not overpowering, okay? So just make a conscious decision. Whichever one you use, it's going to come out super tasty. So choose one of those peppers. We're going to use some salt, of course, and the butter, I should have mentioned, I use unsalted butter, though this one apparently is salted. So we're just going to use a little less of the salt. But if you are looking to control your salt intake, the amount of salt that you're preparing in the bird and across the meal in general, then use unsalted butter, okay? And then we also have some onion powder. And now my secret weapons, other than the fresh herbs of course, are ground nutmeg and ground cinnamon. These are just reminiscent of fall to the max, right? You cannot make a fall dish really without cinnamon or ground nutmeg, in my opinion, humbly, right? So we're going to use those just a little bit. It just kind of brings it somewhere special, right? And we're going to take fresh, well, not fresh, but we're going to take cinnamon sticks and also stuff those into our bird so that we have this kind of continuous aroma of cinnamon throughout the bird, okay? All right, so let's get started. Now that we have all of our ingredients here, and if I went a little fast for you, be sure to check out the blog post that goes with this video, and of course I'll have everything written out nicely there in a checklist for you. So we are going to start by unwrapping, putting all this butter. I live near a busy road, y'all, so if you hear cars and things going by or children screaming, it's completely normal. So we're going to unwrap all this butter, and again, I am using 2 cups worth. Now use room temperature butter if you think of it. Pull it out the night before, just leave it on the counter, have it ready to go for the morning. I, however, was a little bit busy, so instead we are taking, this has been out for maybe an hour, but it is, fall, winter here in Maine, so it's a little on the chillier side just in general. So what I'm going to do, no big deal, we're going to take this all out and we're going to microwave it on low for just a few seconds. We'll keep kind of checking it just to soften it up so that we can make it to the point of whisking. We don't need to fluff this butter like you would with cookies. We're not trying to make whipped butter, but we are trying to make sure that we can fully incorporate all the goodness that we are putting into the butter. We want to make sure that it all mixes very well. And of course, have some paper towels ready to go. All right, I'm going to microwave this and then we are going to get to adding the rest of our goodies. Okay, so we have softened the butter now, and it took me about 45 seconds, and I actually did it on high just because it has that little automatic like start-stop. And so I did it for 45 seconds, checking it every 15 seconds just to see. And you can see that there's a little bit has melted. That's a good sign. You don't want the whole thing to be melted, but having a little bit of melted butter at the bottom tells me that the rest of it is likely pretty soft. So we are just going to set that to the side. And now we are going to start chopping our beautiful herbs. I'm going to move our roasting pan to the side. Be sure that when you are thinking about what size bird you want and maybe going out and purchasing a roasting pan, that you really think about the size bird that you have or the size bird that you want and the way that it works with a roasting pan. This roasting pan I got from Pottery Barn or Williams Sonoma, one of them. Anyhow, it's beautiful, love it, easy to clean. That is a roasting pan meant for a medium-sized turkey, so about 20 to 25 pounds, or of course anything less than that. So we are going to have to do some finagling with this monster of a turkey at 31 pounds. So just be aware of that. If you really want to be able to just put it in there, set it and forget it, then make sure you are buying the appropriate size pan and turkey, okay? But I will show you how we're going to make this monster fit and make sure that it all cooks evenly and perfectly without destroying the oven, okay? So let's get to it. Now the first thing is we need to chop our herbs. And so I've got my rosemary, my thyme, and my sage. The sage, in my opinion, is really kind of the icing on the cake when it comes to the herbs. So we're not going to use a ton of sage, but we are going to use a fair amount of rosemary and thyme, and really primarily thyme. In some cases, because it's so tiny and delicate, that we obviously need a little bit more compared to the rosemary and thyme, compared to the rosemary and sage. But thyme is just such a good herb when it comes to any type of poultry. It's just so delicious. The flavors work so well. Alright, so we are going to take all of the little leaves that we can off of the rosemary. And so I am just holding it by the top of the stem and pulling down. So we find approximately the top and just pull it down as best we can. It's okay if you get a little bit of stem in your rosemary. It's all going to get chopped up. It's all still delicious. Okay. Again, finding that little top there. And then pulling down. Some of them break easier than others, and it's okay. Now you are going to want to use for a, again, I'm going to use kind of the standard of the 20-pound turkey. You are going to want to use probably, you'll want to look in the blog notes for when I go back and really calculate this, but I'm estimating about 4 sprigs of rosemary. Now when I say a sprig, this is not what I mean. This right here is more of a half sprig. What you want is the real tall, legitimate sprigs of rosemary. That's what I mean when I say a sprig. So, of course, for us, it looks like I'm going to end up using most of the package that I have. But remember to leave a little bit, at least, for the inside of your bird. So again, most people are not going to have a 31-pound turkey. Alright, so I have quite a bit here. Okay, and we're just going to put the other ones to the side. So I'm going to put those, if you have quite a bit of rosemary left over, we're of course going to stuff some. But they're really good in mashed potatoes also, which I'm going to show you how I do those in the Instant Pot in either later in this video or in another video. So just be sure to keep an eye out for that. So we're moving that to the side, and now we are going to take a look at our sage. Let's see. For a 20-pound turkey, you would want probably 4 medium-sized leaves of sage. For this monster of a turkey, I feel bad keep calling him a monster, but he is in the best way ever. We are going to use probably about twice that. We're going to use about, a mixture between large and small, about 6-7 of the fresh sage. Move that to the side. And now when it comes to thyme, oh, my favorite. So I'm going to use about this amount, probably. We'll look at it when it gets off of the stems here. But we're going to use a good handful, a good chunk of fresh thyme in our butter mixture here. So again, just like the rosemary, you hold it from the top of the stem and pull down. Some of these are easier than others, and again, if you get a little bit of stem in there, like when you're plucking the tops of them like that, it's okay. We're going to chop this all up here in just a minute. Alright, so that looks pretty good, and I'm going to say that's where we're really going to start. So you can see that the thyme is almost as big as the rosemary bunch, just visually from that kind of aspect to figure out when enough is enough. The thyme and the rosemary group should be about the same. So we're going to move these herbs to the side. And now we are just going to give these all a nice rough chop. I'll do the rosemary and the thyme at the same time. Be sure to keep your fingers out of there so nothing gets cut or pinched. And we're really going for a rough chop here. We want it to, again, fully incorporate into that nice butter mixture that we're making, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Just keep kind of putting it into a pile, giving it a nice rough chop. Find any little stems, just go ahead and pull those out. All right, beautiful. All right, so you can see this is a very nicely, a fine kind of herb mixture. There are some pieces that are a little bit bigger. Totally okay. Want this to be a fun experience for you, all right? So let's see about how many tablespoons we have here. So we've got 1, 2, so I would call that about 3. So between the thyme and the rosemary for this bird, it's about 3 tablespoons of that thyme and rosemary combined together. Now, if you are using dried herbs compared to fresh herbs, you are going to need less in general. Dried herbs are a little bit more concentrated. However, if you have the ability, if you have the resources to use fresh herbs, they taste so much better. Just use fresh herbs if you can. But if not, then go ahead and use dried herbs, and you'll just want to use a little less. I would say if you are having about a 20-pound turkey, you are still going to want about 2 tablespoons total of your herbs, okay? And so just be conscious about whether using dry, fresh, and you can always shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram and I can help you out, okay? All right, and so here we have a hearty tablespoon of fresh sage. Okay? So now those herbs and butter mixture is done there. We are going to add, tuck that in. Now we're going to add our garlic. And I am using a heaping tablespoon, so more like a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic. You don't measure garlic, that's something you put in with your heart. Right, isn't that what the memes are saying these days? I totally agree. Whatever they're saying, I totally agree. So we've got about a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic now in there. I'm going to put the other garlic to the side. And then we are going to do some black pepper. And I'm actually going to grab a new spoon just because the other one is a little wet and I don't want my dry ingredients sticking to it. So using the fine black pepper is what I'm using here, and I have about 1/4 of a tablespoon. I told you guys I'm using the tablespoon measurement for everything, so I know that that's probably, 2 teaspoons. 1 utensil, keeping it simple. I know all the chefs are probably like, ooh, oh my gosh. We're home cooks. We're gonna make this work. Now we've got onion powder, and I stuff the bird with onions. So this just helps a little bit. I'm only using about 1/2 of a tablespoon worth of onion powder. Again, the dry ingredients, dried herbs and things like that are much more concentrated, so you don't need quite as much. Now we've got our nutmeg. Nutmeg, we are going to put in, how much do we want to put in? We're going to put in about for this large bird, I'm going to do about 1/2 of a tablespoon. You will likely want to use more, like 1/4 of a tablespoon. Again, we're just trying to give it that extra warmth, that hint of nuttiness. We're not trying to overpower the rest of the herbs. Cinnamon, same thing. I'm going to use about 1/2 of a tablespoon. You'll want to use more of like 1/4. And please, if you are making a 30-pound bird like I am, let me know. I want to hear about it. Oh, and we almost forgot the lemon. Okay, we are going to take the zest of 2 lemons. Be sure to have a good size bowl when you're doing this. Really easy to run out of room with all this goodness that's going to be going on our turkey. I really get as much of that zest as I can off. The lemon paired with the fresh herbs really just gives a nice, vibrant, fresh flavor, especially to a farm fresh turkey. It all just makes sense. Fresh is so much better. And we do not want to leave any of this yummy lemon zest. So I'm just scraping off our little zester here. And we also need some type of lemon juicer. So now that we've put the zest in there, I'm going to take these lemons, just give them a nice little roll. Just adding a little bit of pressure as I roll them. Really kind of releases the juices inside. Cut them in half. These aren't crazy huge lemons of any sort. Just your standard lemons. And now we're going to add the juice of 2 lemons. And then just set these little lemon carcasses to the side because we are going to use them to stuff into our turkey. Like I said, give yourself a nice big bowl so you don't have to transfer like I am, but it's okay. Give us plenty of room to mix this goodness together. Oh, I can smell that nutmeg. And if you're doing anything with butternut squash this Thanksgiving, it's really going to help to tie your dishes together. This looks so good, guys. So I do want to mention something else you can do at this point is if you've made a big batch of this and you think there's no way I'm going to be able to use this all on my turkey, reserve some, okay? Take a ramekin out and just put some in a ramekin. You can put it on some toasted bread. You can put it on your mashed potatoes. You can put it on butternut squash if you are making that instead of the kind of standard sweet potato. This butter is good to use now, and boy would it be delicious, right? Okay, so we are back and I'm all set up. Now, generally speaking, you're probably going to do this on a kitchen table, which I would highly encourage so that you can have both your bird and your things here, your stuffing mixture. This is where we're at right now. So that you can have that all kind of in the same place and be able to just chop and stuff, right? There's absolutely no rhyme or reason to this, really. It's not that everything has to be mixed in a certain way. No, if you have celery and you're chopping celery, once you get done chopping it, stuff it in the bird. For this video, because I really want to be able to show you guys exactly how I do it, I'm going to chop stuff right now, and then we're going to move the turkey over and I'm going to show you how to do it from there, okay? So we have the herbs from earlier. I've grabbed some fresh cranberries. We are going to put those in there, keep it nice, moist, juicy. We have the fresh garlic. This time I do recommend fresh garlic as opposed to the pre-minced kind of stuff. We have our lemon ends that we juiced earlier. And so I have those just waiting in a dish. We have the cinnamon sticks, my little secret weapon. We have an onion, a carrot, or a couple carrots rather, and some celery. Now use what you have available to you. If you have some fruits, veggies that are kind of on their way out in the fridge, this is a great opportunity to use them. We have about 3 celery stalks left on here, so that's what I'm going to use to be putting into the bird. And so I would also recommend that when you are stuffing the bird, try and at least have what they call a mise en place. So that would be your onion, your carrot, and your celery. These are the very basic, amazing foundations, good to any stock. And so because we're going to be making a gravy from the drippings of our chicken, or turkey rather, we're going to be making gravy from our turkey, and I'm going to show you how to take a turkey carcass and turn it into turkey broth. Just like chicken broth, we are using every part of this marvelous farm fresh raised bird, okay? So because of that, having these 3 ingredients is really just a game changer and the basic great foundation to any stock or any gravy. Okay, and then we are also going to use an apple. So when I say fruits, I mean things, like lemons and apples and cranberries, things that are a little bit sweet, a little bit tart, just to kind of elevate and bring the juiciness to that turkey, because it's going to do amazing things for the bird, but it's going to do unbelievable things for your gravy. Okay, so now We are just going to be rather rough with this. We don't need to get fancy. Like I said, this is all going inside of the bird. So we're just going to chop our onion. We're actually going to quarter it. And you can use any onion that you have. If you happen to have a purple onion in the fridge and you don't have any yellow onions, or if you have a white onion, just use those. If you have some extra of the boiling onions, go ahead and use those. Onion is onion for this purpose. Okay, so we have just kind of quartered it. You might need to make it a little bit smaller just depending on the opening of your bird. Okay, and so I am using quite a bit here to stuff the bird, and I may even need a little bit more. I might need a second onion. Not sure at this point, but for you, if you are doing, again, about a 20-pound turkey, this amount of ingredients should be good. Okay. Ooh, that onion is strong. So with the apple, again, just giving it a nice rough chop. Nothing needs to be crazy uniformed in size. It's going to be in the oven long enough that we don't need to really worry about that. This bird, being 31 pounds, is going to be in the oven for about 6 hours on 350. 350 or 325. Haven't quite decided yet. I'll let you know in a bit. Again, giving this a nice rough chop. Now the thing about cooking a bird stuffed versus unstuffed, if you are cooking a bird that's stuffed and you're doing the actual stuffing, the bread stuffing as it is, the USDA recommends 20 minutes per pound of stuffed turkey. And then if it's unstuffed, reducing that to about 15 minutes per pound. Now, when I have been testing this, I don't know if it's because I'm not stuffing it like chock full, but I'm finding that I like to hang out in that middle ground of 18 minutes per pound. Because I don't want the turkey to get super dried out, but it is stuffed, and so, you know, kind of we have that nice that nice parameter from the USDA, so let's stay within that. Alright, so now I'm going to move all my goodies here over to my little basket, and we're going to get that turkey out and start stuffing that. And I am going to pull out 2 cinnamon sticks. We're going to do 2. 1, 2. And I would suggest 2 cinnamon sticks for you as well, regardless of size of bird. Woo! Look at that turkey! Oh my goodness. Thankfully, this pan, this roasting pan, is big enough. I will say though that when I do put this into the oven, I am going to slide a cookie sheet underneath. I have an extra large cookie sheet, so if by any mishap some drippings, you know, off of this side of the turkey end up coming down into the oven, I at least have a place to catch it, okay? But this does look like it's going to fit nicely, and it's beautiful. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful looking bird. Now, a few things that I want to talk about before we dive in. You should unwrap your bird, you know, take it out of the fridge in the morning, kind of like let it come to room temperature unwrapped. I just unwrapped mine. I mean, if you forget, no big deal, guys. It's okay. All right. And this monstrous bird is a 31 pounder. So I did get some questions from some readers, and I love questions. You guys can ask me questions anytime, and if I don't know, I'll go and look it up. And so like this was one of the questions that I actually had to go look up, which is, how big of a bird should I get for the party that I'm having? Now, general rule of thumb seems to be 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of bird per guest. Okay, so this bird is about 30 pounds, so with the 1.5 pound rule, we'll call it, this should serve 20 guests. And so also keep in mind, adults versus children. Typically a 17-pound bird is good for the average party, right? So this bird is definitely going to last us. Also keep in mind leftovers. Do you want to send your guests home with leftovers? Most people do. So also add into the weight of your bird, sending leftovers home. Also keep in mind you're going to want leftovers. This is usually the only time of year that we really have turkey. So getting a big one like this, you can freeze the meat after, and you can make delicious recipes, which you can actually find over on my other blog, For the Love of Leftovers. There's plenty of recipes there, or going to be there, using this big beautiful bird and how to repurpose and really use up all the meat, because turkey is this time of year actually cheaper. A lot of grocery stores will do what they call, they'll take a loss on turkey, right? So they lure you in with the cheap price of a turkey. And I've always wondered if it's a marketing scheme, but my father actually works for a grocery store as a meat cutter in addition to his own farm. So I asked him, is this a trick? Is it, are they really that much cheaper? Should I wait until Thanksgiving week to buy one? Or should I wait till after? Will they go on sale? And he said, no, if you're going to buy a bird from a store instead of a farm at Thanksgiving, to go Thanksgiving week, that they often sell out and that they are taking a loss on the product. So what the stores will do is they will mark down the turkey. So for example, Hannaford up here in New England is about 39 cents per pound. That is so cheap, okay? And that's as cheap as they will get. They will sell out most likely, and so they draw you in with that super low price, and then they actually increase the prices on all the fixings. They know they're going to get you in with the turkey, and they want you to buy everything else, the potatoes, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, all those kinds of things, right? Those things typically are not on sale or not really on sale. They're taking a loss on this product from a profit standpoint to get you to come in and buy everything else. It's definitely a marketing tactic which seems to work for them. So if you can afford it, now's the time to go out and buy multiple turkeys from your local grocer, or get a big one like I did from your local farm, okay? So this beautiful bird, like I said, will serve about 20 people. It will give us an ample amount of leftovers, which is great for my 7-person family, almost 7 people. Granted, this one won't eat for quite a while, but that's okay. So even 6 people, it gives us a good week or so of leftovers, and who doesn't like leftovers? So when you get a bird, it's often going to come like this. Whether you get it from a farmer or from a grocer, it's going to come nicely wrapped in a plastic bag, and open the bag in your sink, okay? Open it in your sink or outside, because there are going to be some liquids in the bag. It's just as the turkey dethaws, it's going to collect those liquids. Also, I recommend that when you do store your turkey in the fridge to get it to dethaw, you should have it on something. Have it on a plate, have it wrapped in another trash bag, just because sometimes there's these little tiny holes, and the last thing you want is to wake up in the morning before having your coffee, open the fridge, and have a bunch of turkey juices pour out at you. Not fun, don't want to deal with it. So you'll want to open this up over your sink, take it out, put it into your roasting pan. Make sure that it does have the grate on the bottom. Okay, you don't want your turkey sitting on just the flatness of the roasting pan. If you do not have a grate, if you've lost it, again, I know this is kind of one of those kitchen appliances, or not appliances, but kitchen tools that we really only use a couple times a year. If you can't find it, not a big deal. All you have to do is take some carrots, celery, anything like that, any kind of vegetable that's nice and bulky, and actually lay that flat and put your turkey on top of it. Those will act as a grate. They're not going to be smushed together, so you're still going to get that air circulation around it, and you're going to prevent your turkey from sitting on the very base of the roasting pan. Okay, so next is every turkey that you get is going to appear like this. Okay, we have the wings up. There's often a bag in here that has your innards, so giblets, the neck, the heart often. So in this one, the way that my parents deliver them to customers, everything is right in this bag. Okay, they've separated everything and put it in the bag for us to be able to pull out nice and easily. When you get one from a grocery store, there's often a chunk of stuff right here, sometimes in a bag, sometimes not. But usually it is. Usually there's a little plastic bag in here, and it's got the heart and the giblets. And then, see if I can turn this thing around again. I'll make sure that you guys can see it. On this other end, there is an opening, right, where the neck would be, and that is where the neck is. And so you will have to make sure to check both ends, okay? You're going to find a bag on this end, and you'll find a long neck on this end, okay? And I have not purchased a turkey from the store as of yet that is missing either of those, okay? So if you can only find one, you're going to have to dig a little bit. Sometimes it's harder to find the neck on this end. A lot of times it is kind of frozen in there. It's not wrapped, okay? So then they always put this kind of skin over these drumsticks here, and it's a little tough, but we undo those. Again, same with a store-bought turkey. You're going to have to undo that and then take out the bag. Okay. And so if you can see here, this long part is the neck, and typically in the what most people would consider the back of the turkey, but it's really not the back, it's actually the neck. And then we have the heart and the giblets. That's all there. Just put it into a bowl, and let's set that bowl aside, okay? And just take a quick peek inside. You should not have to remove anything else. There should not be anything else kind of hiding in there that you then have to pull out, okay? And so now we're going to take some paper towels, and we are going to dry this off. When you open your turkey in the sink, you are not going to want to wash it. Okay, that's a very old school thing that, you know, I'm sure you've probably seen things on Facebook about it, how really you don't need to do that, because all it's doing is contaminating your sink, whether it's with turkey or with chicken, any type of meat, really. And remember, we are going to be cooking this bird. Any type of yucky stuff, in my opinion, is going to be cooked out. It's going to be fine. You're going to be safe. So no sense in contaminating your sink if you don't have to. Okay, and one way to know if the turkey is right side up. This happens all the time. People cook turkeys or chickens upside down. I've done it before plenty of times. You know, it doesn't usually ruin it, but of course we want to try and do everything we can as best we can. Take a look at these. Before they get tucked under, we have these little wings pointing up. Okay, that's how I now remember that this is the breast. This is breast side up because these wings are pointing up. After we lather everything, we're going to tuck the wings. And so we get that nice, beautiful presentation of the turkey, and so that we don't over brown and overcook the wings here. Okay, but that's a neat little tip for you. Pointing up, breast side up. Okay, so I am going to wash my hands real quick now that we've patted this down dry, and we are going to get into all this other good stuff. And now again, if touching a raw bird makes you crazy, now would be a good time to put on gloves if you haven't already for drying off your bird. Okay, so here we are, ready to go. First thing that I do, and this might drive some people crazy, but that's okay. This is the secret, guys. This is the secret to getting a super beautifully moist turkey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the skin from the breast, okay? And I know I'm gonna get so many comments, and it's okay. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna find this kind of nape here, and you'll feel as you start putting some tension on it that it'll start pulling away itself. And you're going to have to do a little bit of work here to really separate that skin. There's kind of a membrane in there that you're just gonna have to kind of separate, okay? There's no other way to describe it. All right. So you'll feel that start to pull apart, and you certainly don't want to pull the skin, you know, you don't want to break the skin. This is going to act as our kind of protective layer. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the beautiful butter mixture that we have, and we're going to smear it all over to get that nice crunchy skin, but we're also going to put it inside. We're going to put it in between so that the breasts are nice and juicy and moist and kept that way through the whole cooking process. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of moving my hand side to side, kind of almost massaging in a way, and you'll feel that there's some points where the membranes, it doesn't feel like it's going to let go. You just kind of have to pinch, use your nails just to really, really separate that, because you want to go as far back as you can. You should be able, and it's kind of cold in here, just so you know, even de-thawed, you should be able to go all the way down. See, as my hand is down here, going all the way down here, and all the way back. Now you're not pressing your hand outside of the bird, but you are separating the skin from the breast. And so you're going to have to do this a couple times. It's going to take a little bit. And you just go as far as you can. Okay. Again, coming over the top, breaking what little ligaments and membranes in there that I have to. Coming down the side. This is definitely a two-handed project. This hand is getting a little cold. Okay. And some membranes may just not break, and that's okay. We're doing the best we can to separate as much as we can. So you can see, might be able to see right here, my hand is right here and I'm having a little bit of trouble. I'm just gonna hook my finger and pull, and it breaks that membrane that feels like a piece of string. Okay, we're gonna keep doing that. Massaging the bird. And my hand cannot go any farther because of up here where my wrist is. So I've brought my hand as far as I can in there. Got things all nice and loose. I've gone down again towards the wings, towards the drumsticks here. Okay, so now it's gonna look a little bit loose, but that's great. That's what we want. So let's see if I can show you on my other camera here. So now you can see this top skin is pretty loose, and so this is our breast right here, and so I've taken this all the way down the side there along the wings and the drumsticks, but everything is still intact. There's no holes or punctures or anything. We've just separated the skin from the meat. Okay, so now, assuming that we have taken our butter and reserved everything that we want to, now we're going to start putting everything in and out. Okay, so again, I do this with my hands. I'm sorry if it grosses you out, but this is all going on the bird or in the trash. Once our hands have touched this butter mixture, after being contaminated with the turkey, we are not going to try and use any of the leftover. We're going to make sure it goes all over this bird or into the trash, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the skin with one hand and take my other hand of butter mixture and just start rubbing the butter all over the breast. It's a very messy job. This might be a good job for kids. They might think it's so super cool. And you're going to want to, again, take this butter as far back as you can. It's going to kind of slip off as you try to move your hand back. It's a messy job, but it is a delicious outcome, okay? Don't be scared. Be liberal with this. Give it as much butter as you can. Rub it in there. And so I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm going to take this lump of butter, pushing it back as far as I can, and now with my outside hand, I'm going to hold it there as I pull the inside hand out so that it traps that butter in there. And now I'm just going to massage it from the outside and try and get that butter to evenly disperse. Okay? So once you feel as though you've gotten it nice and covered in there, getting it as much as you can, now we're just going to take the rest of it. No sense in washing our hands at this point. We are just going to take the rest of this butter and massage it right onto the bird. A nice thick layer, okay? Don't be scared. This is going to be so good. We're going to put it over the drumsticks, anywhere that you can see a skin of that bird. We are exfoliating it with delicious herbs and garlic. Okay. Make sure to get the undersides as best you can. Some of this will melt off. Whatever does is just going to end up in the gravy, which is completely fine. And we're going to do this before we tuck the wings under, because we want to make sure that we're getting all this yummy buttery goodness on the wings as well. Okay. And it does make a mess. That is okay. Another good reason why you should have a baking pan or two with some tin foil or something to catch anything that falls off, because as you can see, I've gotten some butter on the roasting pan. You can also take a paper towel and wipe down the roasting pan, of course, before you put it in the oven. Get as much off of the sides as you can so that it doesn't drip into your oven, but there's likely to be a little bit of dripping possibly. Okay. Normally I wouldn't turn it like this, but because I'm trying to show you, we're getting butter everywhere. More butter, more better, right? We're just going to keep on covering everything we can. We've covered, oh, see, I've missed a little spot. Make sure you look at this from all angles. Your bird should practically be yellow by the time you're done. And this would be a good time, probably earlier if I hadn't said it, but if you haven't yet, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350. Some places suggest that you preheat your oven to 450, and then right before putting the bird in, you drop it down to 350, 325. Again, simple is best for me, so we just go 350, put it in the oven, let it cook on 350 the entire time. Okay, so all this butter, this nice shell of butter, is going to help us to keep the chicken moist, but it's also in how we cook the chicken temperature-wise and what we're going to do with it before we put it in, which I'll show you in just a bit. So now I have everything nicely buttered, and we are going to tuck the wings. I'm going to kind of come behind. And it's going to sit on its wings in a way. Okay, so probably the hardest part of doing a turkey is getting the wings to tuck under. I just had to have my husband come and do it because I physically could not do it. So the wings that were sticking up right here, we bent them backwards, okay, which is technically forwards because remember this is actually the neck end. So we bent them forwards and tucked them under the turkey. And you will notice that some of the, when you do that, some of the butter kind of smears off a little bit, and that's why we just have the butter right here ready to put back on. And you'll notice that as it sits, this butter kind of hardens. Now, one of the reasons it doesn't like harden, right? But it's you'll see, you'll be able to tell what I'm talking about when you see this. One of the reasons why we use a dry turkey is so that the butter actually stays on, right? We're putting it on in a nice thick layer and it's staying there. If you try and put this on a wet turkey, oil and water just do not mix, and that's what butter is, right? So it would just kind of slide off. So if you start putting your butter on and looks like it's kind of just running off or not sticking nearly as well, give it a little more time to dry, okay? So now that we have got our wings tucked under, just gonna check here and see if there's any other little bit I should cover up. Nope, everything looks good. So now we are going to start stuffing our turkey, and we're gonna keep the butter to the side. We're gonna start stuffing our turkey with all this good stuff. So I always use at least a whole onion, so that's going in first. We're gonna put in the lemon carcasses, reserving one of them. Okay, I always put one right at the front. This is kind of a big turkey, so it's not really going to work as cutely as it normally does, but the cap at the end, I save one of those lemon slices to kind of shut in the heat and everything, trap all the goodness in there, right? We're going to put in our cinnamon sticks, put in our celery, put in our chopped carrots, put in some apples and cranberries. Oh, nice and stuffed right full. The rest of our carrots there. I'm going to grab some of this thyme and sage, stuff that in. Some of these rosemary sprigs, a little more sage maybe. I love sage on the inside of a bird. There's something that it just does aromatically, whereas I prefer thyme and rosemary on the outside. Put more of these cranberries in there, last bits of apple. Don't forget your garlic. I'm just going to break this open. This is one that we had that was going a little bit, so whatever I don't use I'm just going to toss. Keep in mind that whatever you have kind of in this dish, I have turkey butter hands, so whatever I've touched in here needs to go into the trash after. Okay. Or save it for the stock. Okay. All right. So that is nicely stuffed. This, your bird will likely be well stuffed. Mine still has a bit of an opening there because this is such a large bird. And again, I'm going to put that lemon right at the opening there. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to take the rest of whatever butter I have here. We're going to try not to waste anything. Take the rest of this butter and we're going to put it inside with all of our stuffing mixtures. Okay, just coat it as best as you can. I'm actually going to stuff a little more garlic in there. Again, we're going to make some delicious stock and gravy out of this, so the more flavor, the better. Put these cranberries in there. We've got the room, so why not? Look at how beautiful this stuffed bird is. Oh my goodness. All right. Stunning. Looks great. And our oven is just about ready. So I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to wipe down the sides and the handle of the handles of this roasting pan. And then when I come back, I'm going to tell you how we're going to cook this turkey in the oven, because that is one of the many secrets and the many mysteries of Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, so we have tidied up now. Everything's good to go. Now for the final, what I would call the final piece. So what we are going to do for cooking this turkey, we are going to take just a regular old cup. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, no precise measurements, just kind of a cup with some water. Gonna put it down at the bottom just to kind of coat it, right? Make sure that it is covered as best as possible, just the bottom of the roasting pan, covering it with liquid. That way, as some of this butter melts, it doesn't just drop to the pan and burn, right? So we'll have it kind of fall into that liquid. Now you can use water. You could use beer. Like I have some pumpkin-y, autumn-y beer that I like to cook with. I like to make some really yummy rice and things like that. You could use apple cider, anything like that. Just put in enough, again, just to coat the bottom, just so that the drippings don't burn, and that's going to become, again, kind of the base to our gravy. So adding a little bit of liquid in there right now is fine. Now, we are putting this in at 350, and this honkin' thing is going to go in for about 6 hours. Yours is not going to go that long. Just do the math. However many pounds your turkey is times 18. That's what I'm going to say. 18 minutes is the magical number. Now, what I do is a little different than what most people do. This turkey is going to go in the oven for about 40-45 minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on it using the light in my oven. I'm not going to peek at it, but I'm going to use the light in my oven and watch that this butter gets nice and golden brown. Now we don't want it to get brass brown. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. We want it to be a light brown. What I want to happen is for this butter to start making kind of a protective coating on this turkey. And then once that happens, we're going to take tin foil and we're going to cover the turkey. We're going to make like a tent. It's going to take, usually it takes 2 pieces, one kind of going this way, one kind of going this way. For this one, it's probably going to take 3 pieces because it's a huge turkey, right? So after this starts getting kind of golden brown, we're going to tent it and then put it back in the oven for the remainder of the time. And then as it gets close to 6 hours, you know, keep an eye on the time as to how long it takes for you to tent it. So if it takes you 10 minutes, make sure that you're adding 10 minutes on to the other end because it still needs that cooking time. So we're going to tent it, put it back in. Towards the end of the 6 hours, so let's say at 15 minutes until 6 hours, I'm going to check the temperature. So obviously this thing doesn't have a little popper timer thing, and honestly a lot of the times those grocery store ones do not work. So make sure that you have a meat thermometer that you can really get in there to test the temperature. And as the temperature is nearing the threshold that it needs to be, which I believe is 165, same as other poultries, that's like the minimum requirement, right? And we're gonna stick it in right here, right at the thickest part of the bird, okay? So when we test the temperature, we're gonna test it there. And as it gets close to 165, we're gonna remove the foil and let it brown for a little bit longer. Because what's gonna happen is as we tent this nice skin is going to get a little moist. It's not going to be that nice crispy. So we need to remove the oil the tin foil at the end in order to get the skin nice and crispy. But I want it to crisp up a little bit at the beginning so that we have that nice protective layer, okay? And that is definitely contradictory to what I have seen a lot of people recommend. They either recommend tenting it at the beginning and uncovering it at the end and not peeking at it at all, which the not peeking part is because, you know, we don't really want it to drop in temperature. We have to work fast, and, you know, that just takes more time away from the cooking process. However, I find if you tent it right now, you're going to get a bunch of butter stuck to your tin foil. And I would rather have my turkey absorb that butter instead of the tin foil. And now other people will tent it afterwards, right? Like what I said, they'll put it in just like this now and then tent it in 45 minutes after it's brown. But that doesn't work either, because then you don't get that nice crispy skin that we are really after. So I've made up my own way. We're going to put it in like this, let it start getting brown, let it start forming kind of that hard layer, then tent it so that we aren't worried about anything sticking to our tin foil, and then towards the end, removing it and making sure that that skin gets the opportunity to get nice and crispy, okay? And then after, when it comes out, then you let the turkey rest for about 20 minutes. And during that resting time, that's when you pop in all of those casseroles that your friends have brought. Whatever it is that you need to heat up real quick, you stuff them all into the oven and let them heat up for about 20 minutes. And then by that time, you're ready to carve the turkey. All of your sides are nice and warm, right? So then everything is warm and ready to be served together, okay? So we're gonna get this in, and I will check back with you, well, probably in a few hours. Alright, now that the turkey is in the oven, we have a little bit of time to talk. I asked you guys on social media to tell me the questions that you have about Thanksgiving, and more specifically about turkey and turkey preparation. So I want to go ahead and answer some of those questions now, and kind of give you some of the reasoning as to why we do things or don't do things that are tradition. So one of the questions that I kind of get asked most often is about brining. And should we brine? What should we brine with? Pros, cons, do you brine? That kind of thing. Short answer, and there's many schools of thoughts. I guess I'll start this with a caveat that there are many schools of thought, and I'm gonna share mine, and yeah, we'll just go with that. So we do not brine. I don't brine. I don't recommend it brining. Really, all brining is the act of putting salt into your turkey or whatever meat it is that you are in fact brining. Now, brines typically are large buckets of water. Anytime you do brine a turkey or any sort of meat, it's left outside, especially in the colder states, or it's in a fridge. It does still need to be kept nice and cold. So the turkey, or whatever meat it is, we're just going to say turkey for this purpose, has to be fully submerged in order to keep it safe, to keep it from getting contaminated, things like that, because brining typically takes days to happen. So you would essentially do it as the turkey is unthawing. You would grab this big bucket, submerge it in water, and add your salt and your seasonings. A lot of people use things like peppercorns, bay leaves, sage, cinnamon sticks, things like that. But the biggest component of it is salt. So I am not a fan of brining for a few reasons. For one, I don't think it makes a difference taste-wise, honestly. If anything, all it's doing is making your turkey saltier. If you purchase a turkey from the store, it has essentially already come pre-brined, pre-brown. It has salt water injected into it. That is just one of the things. You'll see it right on the turkey wrapping, that it'll say something like 5%, sodium nitrate or whatever it is, right? It has all the scientific things, and then it says flavorings. They've injected the turkey with salt water, and that often is to increase the poundage in the turkey and to give it better flavor. But if you're purchasing a farm fresh turkey, if you're purchasing an organic turkey, things like that, you want the taste of the turkey to shine. When it comes to wild turkeys, that's where it might differ a little bit, because wild turkeys are oftentimes a bit more tough. So brining it could soften the meat a little bit, but again, I wouldn't. It's just not something that's necessary and worth the extra effort. So, short answer, no to brining, not worth it. Let the turkey shine, not the brine. Okay? And another question that I had was about butter. Now, as you saw through my process here, I believe butter is best. I put butter on, in, through every place that I possibly can, but it's not just butter. I always make sure that I am adding some type of seasoning, some type of fresh herb, some type of citrus. So today I used lemon. You could also use orange. You could use lime. It's that the amount that's used isn't going to be overpowering, but it brings a balance to that meaty earthiness that we have going on. Having that citrus involved is really magical. You could also use apple cider vinegar. If you don't have any fresh fruit like that on hand, just use maybe a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar in your butter mixture. Okay? Next question is about basting. And this is another one that is super traditional, but not worth the extra effort. Every time you open that door to baste with the theory that you're keeping your turkey super moist, you're letting out heat, which is increasing the amount of time that you need to cook that turkey, as well as making the temperature of the turkey and of the oven fluctuate. We don't want that. We want a nice, consistent, low and slow kind of heat cooking situation going on for our turkey. Basting is a bit pointless, honestly, because if you're going for that crispy skin, chances are so when you baste it, you're going to have to untent it in order to do that. Tenting it really takes the place of the basting. You are keeping that moisture, that liquid, circulating within the pan by tenting it, and that amount of liquid that we put in the bottom of the roasting pan. So we have this kind of steam effect going on, and it's just kind of getting circulated in there. So we just cover it and leave it alone. No reason to baste. Let the drippings fall, let it all recirculate in amongst itself, and then those drippings get turned into the gravy. The thing that I did forget to show you guys before sticking the turkey into the oven is with the drumsticks. So we've tucked the wings under the front portion of the turkey, so to keep those from browning, right? So what you also should do is the drumsticks that then come out the back, where we had taken them out of their little kind of, I call it a neck portion, but that extra skin, they were kind of tucked under there. We took them out so that we could stuff the turkey, right? So then at the end, what you want to do is either put them both back under that extra piece of skin, or you can simply take kitchen twine and tie the legs together. Kind of doing that same thing that we were doing with the water, the legs just kind of closing, create more of a shelter to the stuffing that is in the turkey, keeping that moisture in. Again, another great tip for keeping the turkey moist, using what it already has. We don't need to give it anything extra by basting it or anything like that. Just close its legs, tie it up, all the tender parts like the wings, tuck those under so that they don't burn, and tent the turkey as a whole. One of the other questions that I got was about cleaning out the turkey. Really, you shouldn't have to do anything. Like I showed you in the recipe prior to this, everything kind of comes in a bag, right? You have the heart and the gizzards that come in a bag that you take out, and then you have the neck typically at the other end that might be a little bit frozen in, but you take that out. And then if you really want to, you can take some paper towels, reach your hand inside the cavity, and just kind of get out any excess liquid. And so this will depend on also how long your turkey has been thawing for. You know, there could be a pool of liquid within the turkey. In that case, you just kind of drain it down the sink or take paper towels and sop it up in there. Otherwise, you don't need to cut anything. You don't need to do anything special to clean the inside of the turkey. It should pretty much just be ready to go. And checking the temperature of your turkey towards the end of its cooking process. Again, you're going to want to make sure you have a really nice and reliable meat thermometer, and I will have a link to my favorites. I use it really for everything, not just turkey, so totally a worthy investment. I'll have a link to that in the blog post, but you want to make sure to check the innermost parts. You're going to want to check this thing in a couple different places. You'll want to check it up on the top in the deep breast. You're going to want to check portions under the thighs and in the wings. Just test a couple different places and as close to 165 as you can. So if you check your turkey and it's 163, don't put it back in the oven. Take it out, or it should probably already be out because you don't want to be finagling in an oven with a temperature. But if you take it out and you're testing it and you see it's 163, go ahead, cover it, let it rest, and it will continue to cook a bit, okay? So you would be completely fine. If you check it and it's 170, take that sucker out, don't tent it, just let it sit and rest for a while, and again, put those, and then go ahead and put those sides into the oven and get those heated up for your meal. Okay, I think that's all, at least that's all. So those are the top questions that I got asked on social media, and if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out, and I'm always up for adding additional commentary to these videos and answering questions that you have. Woo! Alright guys, it has been about 5.5 hours. We've done a wardrobe change. We've made some mashed potatoes in the Instant Pot and taken out our turkey. So as you can see, the outside got nice and brown. It looks very crispy, which is definitely how we want the skin. And you'll notice some of these darker black parts, and it almost looks burnt, but it's not. We have those fresh herbs that ended up getting kind of black in the process. Those were the ones that were over the top, and the skin did split on the top. Not a big deal. not going to affect the taste. It just got a little bit crispy and started to separate. And you'll have that. That's okay. So now we're going to check the temperature, and I'm going to show you where it is that we do that. So this is my thermometer. It's a Thermapen. They certainly aren't sponsoring this video in any way, but just wanted to show you. We're going to come in at an angle on the breast here and go about as deep as we can go. And that looks great. We're just going to check it in a couple different spots. Want to make sure that you're getting nice and deep. And you want it all to be about roughly 165. You may have a couple pieces like in this really deep spot here that are less than 165. I'm going on record saying the USDA says the minimum is 165. But we have other parts down here that are reading at like 175. And so remember, as it sits, which it's doing right now, it's going to continue cooking for a bit. So it's going to be okay. Good things. We don't want to burn this bird. We want it to be nice and juicy. Now, one thing that I do as soon as it comes out, I don't baste during the cooking process. But as it's resting here, I will take some of that beautiful liquid from the bottom and I'll kind of baste it as it sits. I know it's a little bit weird, probably not exactly what you're used to, but I love the idea of this warm, juicy, delicious liquid just going down the turkey. Really wanting it to kind of absorb more of those juices as it starts to sit here and dry out a little bit. Again, this is something that I just do. I'm sure there are culinary experts out there that would say I'm crazy or it's useless or whatever, but look at that steam. You can tell that it's still cooking, so I just want to make sure to give it a little bit of hydration as it sits here. So now is the perfect time as it sits and it rests. If you have a casserole of any sort, if you have these mashed potatoes, if you have sweet potatoes, anything like that, now is the perfect time to get them in the oven, get them nice and warmed, broil the tops of them, get them all heated through. So we are going to let this rest for about 15-20 minutes before we start carving into the turkey. Now, to carve into the turkey, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need a really sharp knife, preferably the one that I was using earlier, but it's in the dishwasher, so we're just going to use this. Any old knife will work as long as it's nice and sharp. And you're going to need some sort of, I'm not sure what these are called, but some sort of pronged utensil. I've used forks before. Again, not a big deal. We're making this easy. But these usually come in packages of 2. And so what you're going to do when you do carve the turkey is you're going to stick this in here just for stability, for balance. And then you're going to take your knife, run your knife along the middle, the breastbone there. And you're going to start here, work your way down, and then come in kind of at an angle and cut again all the way down. And pieces will break. It's fine. You're going to get nice little stacks of turkey. So you can take a knife and you can kind of come along this connection point right here for the leg, and then just tear it off, serve it beautifully like that on a tray, or you can actually take apart the dark meat here and serve it on a tray as well. And then we've got the huge wings here. You can break those off, you can eat those. You can eat this entire breast down here. And don't forget that at the end of the day, when you are salvaging pieces of turkey, there are plenty on the underneath side. And it's all really yummy, really good stuff. And so I just want to give you a quick peek before we end here, just at what everything looks like on the inside. All those beautiful drippings on the bottom that we're going to add some flour to, just to make a yummy gravy. Look at that. Look at that beautiful inside. Again, you're going to think that some of this is burnt. It's more caramelized than anything, and it's delicious. We have all these yummy insides. All that stuff right there is going to be great for your turkey stock, so make sure not to throw it away. So now the last thing that you're going to do once this turkey has rested and you start cutting and parting things, what I would recommend is, as you cut and take off as much as you can right at the beginning, don't bother waiting. Cut everything that you can, put it onto your nice serving trays, and start putting the scrap pieces into a large stock pot. That way, later in the night or as you're eating, you can fill that stock pot up with water above where the carcass line is and all these innards, right? You put that all into a stock pot, cover it with water, and get that boiling on the stove. Once it comes to a boil, reduce to a simmer and let it simmer for a few hours, and then strain it and you'll have homemade turkey stock. So I find it easiest just to do it all at the same time. As I'm cutting, I'm going to take the scraps, I'm going to put it into the stock pot, and then as we're eating, it's going to heat up on the stove. And also, once you've done that, that leaves you this beautiful roasting tray of drippings. Now, if you have a gas stove top, you can just take this tray right to the gas stove top, turn it on, add some flour. There's already a good amount of butter and fat in there from roasting the turkey, so you don't have to add any more of that. But you can add a cornstarch slurry, or you can add some flour over heat and just whisk and make a gravy from your drippings. And I have a couple of recipes on the blog that you can definitely check out, but this is definitely the easiest way. If you do not have a gas stovetop, then simply put your oven mitts back on once you've taken out the turkey and pour this into a small pot of some sort, and then you can do it on the stovetop if you have an electric or an induction burner. So same idea, whether you're doing it in the roasting pan or you're transitioning the liquid from here into a pot, same idea. There should be plenty of liquid. If you need to add any liquid, you certainly can. You can add some heavy cream to make it, a little thicker, a little more luxurious. I would start with a half a cup and see how the thickness turns out and the flavors and whatnot. Same with water or apple cider. If you're adding any other type of liquid during the process of making it into the gravy, you are going to want to start with just a half a cup at a time and really find that balance. Everybody likes their gravy a little bit different. I like mine pretty thick, so I usually don't need too much liquid, but you're just going to have to kind of play with the proportions and see what you like with the cornstarch slurry versus liquid ratio. Okay, always start with a little bit and tweak as you go, and make sure to give plenty of time for your gravy to thicken and heat up. Don't just pour in and assume that that's as thick as it's going to be. No, it's going to thicken up a little bit over time, okay? So just play it by ear. It's going to be great. As long as the taste is there, nobody cares what it really looks like, right? I hope you guys have an amazing Thanksgiving. And I'm going to get this bird cut up and plated, and we're going to start digging in. Alright, thanks so much. If you guys have any questions at all, or if you make a bird, if you use this recipe, if you have any, if you've used any part of this video, I would love if you would tag me over on Instagram at Farm Table Recipes, and I would love to see what you guys are up to and share it back with everyone else. Alright, thanks guys so much. Again, have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving and holiday season.